celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated.
So talking about ChatGPT, funnily enough, I've been working with Kurt on obviously the incubator concept, but also the what I've called the oath concept. So I went into ChatGPT and was having a conversation with it around this topic, which is kind of why does social discourse online so easily, descend into the quagmire, but, and it's coming back with this kind of bullet points of, all the things that I'd enumerated and figured out last year. It just, reels off in 30 seconds type of thing. You're like, damn. So I asked it, said,
you don't need your kitchen cabinet anymore.
I just need ChatGPT.
Tell those guys to fuck off.
So I asked it, I just said, okay, so, I'd had this, one of our ideas was this, from last year was the Hippocratic Oath for, online discourse. And we kind of kicked the tires on it, and it was kind of under the, create a movement type of bucket of ideas. So I said to it, well, what would be a Hippocratic Oath for public discourse? And I was thinking, where do I start? How do I write this thing? And, so it comes back, and it's kind of spooky. So this is literally what it came back with. I swear to uphold the following principles in my online discourse. I will strive to do no harm with my words and actions online. I will respect the privacy and dignity of others and will not engage in any form of cyberbullying, harassment, or hate speech. I will use my words and actions to promote understanding, empathy, compassion, and not spread misinformation or propaganda. I will acknowledge and correct my mistakes and engage in constructive criticism and dialogue with those who disagree with me. I will use my influence online for the betterment of society and will not engage in any activity that may cause harm or damage individuals or the wider community. I will uphold the principles of free speech, but I will use my platform responsibly and with integrity. I recognize the power of my words and actions online and will use them in a way that promotes the common good and fosters healthy and respectful dialogue. I swear to these principles with the knowledge that my words and actions have the power to affect others and the world around me.
Wow.
I was like, you're shitting me.
There's not a lot that you have to
I tweaked a few words and I was just like, sure. Damn. And then I thought, you think what ChatGPT does and the way it works. I thought, well, if I'd have read 300 billion or whatever it is pages of information and human words, so the entirety of human knowledge online, if I had read all of that and remembered it and could recall it based on statistical significance, maybe I could have come up with that. But that's ChatGPT. I mean, when you look at how it works, it's got all its flaws, don't get me wrong, but it's just, in a very simplistic way of looking at it, it's kind of a probabilistic model based on the entirety of human knowledge, trained on the, entire human knowledge that's available online. So what it comes back with may not be correct, factually or otherwise, but it's probabilistically distilling all human knowledge that's available online. Scary shit.
It's mind-blowing. I mean, it's scary, but it's so exciting at the same time. Think about how much work you would have had to have done just to come up with that as a basis. And it puts that out. I mean, the time and the energy and the focus. And it's
with my natural biases, and I may have got some of those points, but I would have probably added a whole bunch that were, that someone, would look at it who isn't me and just kind of say, well, that doesn't make any sense. But it's like, how can you argue with ChatGPT in a way? This is not me. This is what ChatGPT is distilled from what humanity has published online around this idea. Mm-hmm. That's not my words. So here's
we just used it a couple times this past weekend. We had, we were writing Anthony's wife wrote a description for a property that we're developing.
And so she sent it to Tennille and said, hey, can you just wordsmith this a bit? Like, Tennille's pretty good with words, so could you just wordsmith this a little bit and change it up? We'd like to modify it a little. And we were driving, and she's like, I don't have time for this shit. And so she flips open her computer. She doesn't even tell me what she's doing. She puts it through ChatGPT, and she puts it out, and then she reads it to me just like what you did, and I was like, wow, like that is so much better. There was a couple of words and things like it couldn't comprehend, but took her 30 seconds to tweak it. Like it really, and the whole process took maybe 4 minutes. And she sent it back to them and said, here you go. How's this for a change? And she read it and she's like, holy shit, you're amazing. Like, this is so good. And you did it so quickly. She said back, thank ChatGPT. Like it's, and they were blown away. They're like, really? Like, but so where does ChatGPT 4 take this? Like, I think
it gets progressively, it's only as up to date as the last set of data it was trained on. So you have to keep retraining the model with more. Humanity I can't remember what the stats were, but it produces more in a year than were produced in the last 100 years. Type of with the invention of the internet. So there's always new knowledge. In quotes, shall we say, loosely called knowledge. So it's, the newer models become, they get more knowledge that they've been exposed to, which means, they can be more temporally relevant, up to date on news and events and whatever it may be. And then the models, the number of parameters that they use in these models, they can keep growing. And the more parameters you get, the more, what's the best way of thinking about the more precise the probabilities can be. And that's not at all really accurate of what's going on, but it's a way of thinking about it, which is, hey, if I've got a bigger model with more parameters, it means I can create more connections, and it means I can essentially have more distinguish between things at a more precise level. So it will become more accurate potentially in what it produces, or more nuanced in what it produces, those are probably the things you get. But I think the models that they're using and the way they work are unlikely to suddenly become superhuman. They're superhuman at the moment because I can't recall. I haven't read everything online for a start, and if I did, I sure as hell couldn't recall it. Yep. This thing kind of compresses all of human knowledge into this model. The petabytes of human knowledge that are out there and compress, which is kind of what our brains do in a way. They take everything that we see, all the stimulus we get from our senses, and they compress it, and we remember a small fraction of it, but it's the fraction that's important to us as we experience reality. So in some ways, the model's doing a similar idea. It's taking everything, compressing it down into a model that now when you can have a conversation with it, it can kind of come back and, answer your questions, whatever it may be. So I think it keeps getting better and better. You saw the difference between ChatGPT 2 and 3. The language was more precise. The answers it could give were longer. They were more nuanced. At some point, then there will be a new innovation probably, which will be, it's not just ChatGPT 100, which is this model just bigger and badder. It's going to be ChatGPT 5 or 6 will be, oh no, we've got a new breakthrough. And now we've got a new way that the model or the system was working or has been built such that, it's even factually correct, can cross-check itself, can tell you why it thinks this way. That's a big problem at the moment. You go chat to you, well, why? Why did you just tell me that? And it's like, well, it has no consciousness. There's no awareness. There's no intelligence really there. It can't tell you why. Even the engineers, I can't look at it and tell you why. It's just a massive connection of wires that probabilistically come out with a response. So, I think you'll see, probably where it goes is if I'm using it for medical diagnosis, it sure would be nice to say, well, yeah, but why? Oh, well, because this journal and this, that, and that's what you kind of expect. References. You'd expect from, truly what they used to call in the old days, like really early days of AI, expert systems, and they were rule-driven systems, but at least they could tell you why. They would kind of go down a tree and kind of say, we reached this diagnosis because I can go back up the tree and say, I chose that over that, I chose that over that, and I chose that over that based on the symptoms or, whatever it might be. So, that's certainly one of the holy grails for today's AI is explainability. Because, when you put them in cars or you have ChatGPT coming out and coming up with things that may not be even true, yet people say, oh, it came from Chat. It's like, it's on the internet, so it must be true. It'd be nice if you could do some kind of reasoning and say, well, why did you drive into that truck? Why did you tell me that, Abraham Lincoln is still alive?
Right. So do you think it turns into like a Jarvis type of environment? Mm-hmm. Where we're, I think about we've talked about this before, like how much Tennille has like civilized me as a human being, coming from where I was, my past and whatnot. And it's like, if everybody had a Tennille for my world, like, and I'm not saying she's the be all and end all. I'm just saying, but
hang on, are you offering Tennille to everyone?
No, I'm
what
not
you just
offering
said?
Tennille to anyone.
I'm pretty sure that's what you said.
That's definitely not what I said. Unless, well, it depends on how much they're willing to pay.
You had to go there.
But if everybody had a Tennille, like where you could just like, because we spend so much time together, so it's like it's always like, I just rhyme off with her or riff. It's same as like when we talk and. It's like you're riffing and you're just throwing ideas and you walk away and go, oh, I have a different lens now that I'm able to view this on, and it changes my perspective and my opinion and ultimately then my actions. And so it's, this would be an interesting advancement in technology. So, I forget the guy I was listening to on a podcast, and he said if you look between the years of 1973 and 2023, that 50-year span, and his argument that technology really has not evolved the way people think it has. When you take 1902 to 1952. When you had the advent of power flight, you've got, television, you've got, I guess, I don't know if lights in there or that was before. But when you think of all the technological advancements that occurred between, in that first 50 years of, 1900s to the early 1900s to the 1950 and 73 to now, really, there's been advancements in the existing technology, better screens, better this, better that, but not really massive technological advancements. But that would be a significant, especially when we just finished that conversation regarding shift of consciousness. If you had a little
better angel.
Are you sure you really want to do that?
That's funny you should. So one of the other ideas we had coming out of last year's kind of brainstorming was exactly that, moderating human behavior, which in the wrong context, taken out of context could be 1984 and pretty scary kind of idea, but it was the idea of could you use AI to be the better angel sitting on your shoulder as you're sitting there typing something, or you're saying that tweet, or knee-jerk reacting, without taking a step back to that post on Facebook and could maybe saying, hey, why don't you take a break for a moment? Why don't you think about that? Are you sure you want to say it that way? So, again, culture versus governance. Everyone's trying to deal with it after the fact when it's happened. If you can get ahead of it and, as I said, the oath is all about, the tagline, calling the better angels of our nature to come out and play. If you had something there as a little bit of a conscience, maybe, we'd see a different behavior.
I would avoid calling it moderating human behavior.
You think?
But you're right. No, but so as you were talking about that, it made me thinking, or I was thinking about it earlier in the podcast, which was, they've taken all of Tony's content and logged it all, every video, every conversation, every interview, et cetera. And then the whole concept was for them to bring to life, Tony, once he is done, finally retires or passes away or whatever happens. And however they tend to want to use that IP and how they decide to deliver it. But it would be interesting if you had somebody like that, if you took, Gandhi and all these, Mother Teresa and these, impactful world leaders and influencers that have, changed culture and changed mindset. It would be interesting to actually have that, because there's so many times where, you write an email and you kind of stop yourself and you go, but 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago, I never stopped myself. It was just like, and then, explode. It would be interesting.
It's, again, I think it's very much in the realm of possibility to have, to be moving towards a Jarvis-like thing.
I can't think, but that's got to be really close to. My new Apple Watch, when somebody sends me a text, it customizes answers based on the text that I just realized that like the other day.
Yeah. No, that's been going on. That generative technology, Google's had it in email. If you use Gmail, they introduced that probably 3 years ago, maybe, where it would start to do kind of autocomplete recommendations based on, again, probabilistic, connected, machine learning and trained models. So we've seen, you've seen it. It's been like boiling the frog. All of those little innovations by, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Apple, they've been introduced in little ways. Siri, you could never have done a Siri or Alexa without some of the models that, are the foundation for something like ChatGPT. The human voice recognition and response just was terrible until you kind of had some of these innovations. Getting all the way to a Jarvis, which I think, because it's in the movies, is likely to happen. I just think there's that kind of, it's in human consciousness. It's in the mindsets of entrepreneurs. Siri, probably predates Iron Man and was probably one of the it's like science informs, movies, non-fiction, which then informs kind of our next generation of science. So I don't think we're there. It's like we're not far away and we're a long way away. I think truly having something that is that capable and intelligent across, within, like embodied in the physical world. ChatGPT is great, but it's not embodied in the physical world in any way. It's not connected to anything that does anything in the physical world. A Jarvis was kind of this, it's this thing that can do shit for you and get things done for you type of idea.
But if you were just looking to influence people's response, right? Like, so,
that's an easier.
Yeah. So so you solve a lot of problems when you can reduce or lengthen the distance between stimulus and response. That's where most chaos happens, is something happens and there's an instant response that is either overblown or overdone. So I'd be interested in getting involved in an app that you could attach to your email, your texting, your tweeting, your whatever, that just would pop up and went, are you sure you want to send this? Like, and that might be all you fucking need. It's just like, hey, we're identifying certain words or certain language or certain, which you could probably easily do. There's an algorithm out there for it already. And then, you know, people could buy the app, put it on their phone, and it's like, you know, here's an alternative solution to, or, you know, an alternative verbiage to that phrase, you know, go fuck yourself, which could be like, you know, I'm very upset right now and I'm not sure how to respond. You know what I mean? It could be just something simple like that. I mean, we talk about this all the time with our sales teams. It's like, you know, they respond on their emotion rather than just stop, take yourself out of it, and focus on the person that's in front of you and what they're about and what they need, and then ask a question that just simply meets their needs. That is, you know, and if there was just a little bit of that, I mean, that would go a long way. And I can't help but think that it would not start that evolution of consciousness, because there's nobody around anymore, to what we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, whereas, like, you know, my filter was my mom's foot up my ass. I mean, really, it truly was. Like, we lived in a small town, but if she heard, you know, oh, your son was doing this, is that, you know, if the school wanted my behavior corrected, the school didn't have to do shit to me. All they had to do was call home. And it would be like, oh yeah, we'll take care of that. Click. And, you know, I'm grounded. I'm scrubbing I'm getting a belt. I'm whatever discipline. And it would be like, it would go from, you know, physical discipline to, you know, active work or whatever.
Yeah,
take away. They usually didn't take stuff away from us, but there was always there was that ability to have consequence to action. And if you could just lengthen the distance from stimulus and response, you could solve a lot of the things that are happening online in social media.
Slowing things down.
Look at this guy. Look at this basketball player that just showed that gun in his, was it a tweet or whatever? I don't know what he was doing, Snapchat or whatever. Did you hear about that? This guy goes at a bar, plays for I think the Grizzlies, and he showed a gun on one of his tweets or Snapchats or Instagram. I think it was Instagram actually, and posts an Instagram response, and he's got like a gun at a bar, and I don't know, like it was asinine. Like, you know, like somebody could have been just, you know, when he posts that Instagram, and it's like,
stop.
Okay, wait a second. We're going to just hold this for 30 seconds. Would you like to not send? You know, even now when I think I was sending an email and it said, you know, on the bottom of it now, it tells me like, do you know, cancel the send or whatever it is. I think that's on Outlook.
Well, yeah,
now.
I mean, the email tools all added in the delayed send so that you could, you know, stop the send if suddenly you had a change of heart, or, you know, oh crap, I forgot to add the attachment or whatever it is. And if you think, we already have pretty much in all of these tools and the operating systems that we use already correct our spelling for us, or at least tell us when we spell something wrong. Some of them, and you can get, you know, like Grammarly, which I use a lot for grammar checking, will tell you whether it's, you know, well written English, we say, from a grammar standpoint. And that was kind of the model for, you know, moderating human behavior. Again, not a great moniker, but what if you could just have those tools go one step further and just say, are you sure you want to send this right now? Or that tone is kind of a bit condescending to you. Is that what you intend to say? You know, just to put a little bit of a break in there. So, I mean, I think that is, you know, we already have the infrastructure. It just needs someone a Google or a Microsoft or Grammarly themselves to kind of add that additional layer. So it's, spell checking, syntax, grammar, great, and tone and intent, which Grammarly can already kind of do some analysis of that. You can say, when it looks at your writing, it can score it based on, am I trying to be official? Am I trying to be colloquial? So on and so forth. So I don't think it's beyond the realm. And then there was coming out of the social dilemma, the folks who started that created a push to voluntarily get Facebook to disable the repost. Once it's been reposted 3 times, if I want to post it again, let's say I'm the third person, I've got to copy it, create a new post, and then send it to my friends.
Right.
And the research that I think Facebook themselves did, if I remember, was that simple act significantly slows down the spread of dis and misinformation, like significantly. Just making it so it's not just a mindless dopamine, push the button, reshare, repost to everyone in my group. Oh, I've actually got to copy and paste it. That's not that important.
Yeah.
And yet Facebook won't do that.
So on your journey to solving the consciousness of 1 billion people, why don't we just create a fucking app, make a quick 100 million, and then, solve your other bigger problem?
Then buy a big boat.
Yeah, and then we'll solve your big consciousness problem on a fucking 200-foot yacht. It seems like super no-brainer to me.
Seems like the obvious thinking. Oh,
Yeah.
I like your thinking.
I mean, I like to keep things simple, as you know.
Not a bad idea.
Honestly, I don't know why
Sign
nobody's
me
done
up.
it. It completely makes total sense. Every single kid should have that posted on the thing. Are you really and it's like you could, for age group, it's like, would your mom approve of this? LOL. Like, make a joke, change the state.
Exactly.
Because that's the problem is like people get into a state and they're not reacting. They're only reacting to the state that they're in.
Exactly. It's there. And that's the way the platforms are. That's what I talked about earlier. If you can get the regulation to change, force the platforms to change, because it seems like they don't want to change themselves because they're wiring you to press that button because that's what gets
right.
what
But
they want.
But if you created something that allowed them, because I don't even think it would be, are you sure you want to send it? Fucking right, I want to send it. Like, all that does is make them more significant or more certain because it just engrades. But if you had, if you're thinking it out and you go, well, what if something actually changed their state? It popped up a little joke or a little whatever. It's like, I don't know. I think that I just think in general. I mean, I think it's a phenomenal business.
And we did seriously. In all seriousness, we kicked the tires on that one. It's one of the 8 of the concepts that we came up with. Variation of a theme, but in and around what we just talked about. From a business, from making it successful, what you got to figure out is the dynamics of why someone would install it. So you can build it and it can work really well and it can do what you intend, but there has to be a reason that's going to drive someone to install it and use it.
Social influencers.
So that's where you
same
need,
as what you talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
you find a social influencer like The Rock or Selena Gomez. And
that's why
and all of a sudden there's 500 million people, because that's like they have like, I think she has 390 million people on her Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is. Twitter, I think it is. I mean, you get those. There's 500 million people, right? And that would help draw attention to it, but it's the story of regret, right? It's like, how many times have you gotten a fight with your significant other or your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister or somebody that, a friend, and afterwards you're like, fuck. Like, you have this regret.
Don't drink and text.
And it's, Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think there's a lot of compelling reasons that you could convince people to do that.
Yeah.
And even if you got it to the point where it was super low cost.
Yeah, I mean, technically it can be challenging, particularly on devices, mobile devices, because of the access that you would need to all the other apps and everything to be. So that's where it kind of, the friction becomes more challenging. You know, you could do it as a browser extension, say on a desktop, which, you know, sits there and doesn't, you know, that's a manageable and doable, at least for things where you're posting online. And if you're using an email client within a browser, mobile devices get a little tricky because I need to be able to see what you're typing into Facebook or what you're typing into the iMessage app, or the iOS doesn't allow you to do that without the user, giving you permission every damn time. And, rightly so, they don't want some malicious piece of software, monitoring everything you write. Those are called viruses and malware. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing is easy in this world. Otherwise, it would have been done. But
yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
It's and I think, where I ended up with the Hippocratic Oath was at a starting point. It's kind of, whatever you do is kind of, you almost, if you're going to influence people at scale, it's the another old adage, but, if you want to build a platform, better to build it on the back of someone else's platform. So, go find people with the reach that you can enlist in the cause. And again, these are, more for the good of humanity type initiatives, and then get them to promote. And then you have to think about the engagement model and the reward model to kind of tie, to have it become a virtuous cycle for the people who are using it. So it's not a dumb idea by any means.
It reminded me of a story. We had a family friend who we rented their cottage, and they had two daughters, and their one daughter was she had everything. I mean, she was beautiful, she was friendly, she was smart, she was hardworking, she was just one of those kids you just look at and go, wow, I hope my son marries somebody like that. She has just got her head on straight and glued together, and just a fantastic girl. We spent 2-3 summers, taught them how to wakeboard, surf, all that kind of stuff. And she went to school. She went away to school, and she was up in Sault Ste. Marie, distance away from her parents and everything. She was in a long distance relationship with her boyfriend. She was 18 at the time. Excuse me. They got in a text fight. Back and forth, texting back and forth. Some really awful things were said. And it led her, she was up in this university up north. She was taking like a environmental program, and she was big into hunting and outdoors stuff. And she had a shotgun up there to hunt with. And because of the text fight and the things that her boyfriend was saying to her, in the moment, she saw no other way out and blew her head off with a fucking shotgun.
Jesus. And
it's like, those are the things, those are the stories where you go, that did not have to happen. And I'm sure that young man regrets every fucking word he texted.
Rest of his life.
But you get in a state, and it's not him. It's, you give up your values, your beliefs, and your rules in order to meet your needs.
Yeah.
And, in that moment, and sure, you'd love to blame him, but as kids, we all did it. We still do it. Still get in an argument with my wife and say shit I don't mean. And I just think, for those kinds of reasons, it's a mission worth pursuing. Yeah, you're doing great things, man.
Well, just starting. See where this road leads. It's a big, hairy, audacious goal for sure. So
yeah, Yeah,
Where
it's
it
going to
goes,
be.
nobody knows.
Well, like you say, it doesn't have to be finished work, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's about the process, and it's a long-term goal. But I do, but I think like you say, you start small, right? You start in and different. I think different avenues. Like, I can't help it. Why is an app like that not in existence?
Yeah, I mean, there may be something I'm trying to. We didn't deep dive into the kind of competitive landscape to see if anyone's specifically doing that. There may well be. And, some of the AI developments that we've literally seen over the last couple of months, it's figuring out the intent of what someone's writing is not an easy thing for machines to be able to do, given the nuance and, is what I'm saying ironic? Is it humor? Is it, so it's actually, that part of it is pretty tricky. And, maybe with some of the AI today, it becomes more feasible to do. But there was I remember a decade ago, there were in the marketing kind of brand development space, there were platforms that would offer you to monitor all of what customers were saying about you and somehow figure out the intent and whether, they were saying good things about you or bad things about you. In the social world, all the different places people can post now. Those platforms probably still exist. I don't know that they were particularly great at that time. So, but it's feasible. And, when I come back, obviously we talked about the idea of the Hippocratic Oath and that particular concept. But, when you and I talked the other day about shift happens as the container, the incubator for ideas, shift happens is, the oath is an idea that I'd love to go pursue under the guise of it's one of many ideas over the next decade that I might like to go pursue. So shift happens gives, is that container to kind of say, hey, this is not just about one idea to solve a problem. This is about the first of many ideas. Some of them may not even be my ideas, and I may not be the one pursuing them, but I'd love to create something, a vehicle that allows me to pursue many ideas to try and solve and tackle, and again, shift happens is takes it from civil discourse. It's the one that really has the, embodies my kind of massive transformative purpose, which is how do you shift the consciousness, positively shift the consciousness, elevate the consciousness of 1 billion people. So shift happens is the vehicle to go pursue that purpose. The Hippocratic Oath idea is just one, idea, one business there may be, of hopefully many over the next decade that I can either lead myself or help others lead to go wake up humanity. So, that's the...
Yeah, that's the incubator format that you're talking about launching, right?
And that's how these, I know when you're doing, the incubator is like, it's very, and great. But what does it mean specifically? Now you've kind of got both ends of the spectrum, which is okay. This will be interesting to do, but it's really interesting for me to do because it's part of the Shift Happens incubator. And that to me says, hey, this is just one of many things you can go pursue, which is way more interesting than just saying this is the only thing you're going to pursue over the next 10 years.
Right.
So, we'll see what happens. Yippee-yi-yay.
I love it. Well, we have to go.
We do.
It's time to draw it to an end, buddy. Thank you again. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. Fun.
We'll do it again for sure, though.